In my Cam's Kindness Week T-shirt, I can't say enough about what Cam does in the community with the Hayward House, and so I thought the best way to support him is just by donning the T-shirt. I know he's out in the community each and every day this week, displaying acts of kindness and other things, and we're just so honored to be associated with that guy and the way that he leads, not only within the organization but within the community. And so, tip of the cap to Cam. And all the great work that's being done at the Hayward House. As always, I'll start with a quick review of our last performance. Thursday night football is what it is, man. You got to do certain things in Thursday night football. And one of the things you have to do is kind of get off the field on defense, particularly on possession downs. We didn't do that over the second half of the game. They were able to sustain long drives. A lot of it had to do with them converting possession downs, and most of those were manageable downs. And usually you're in manageable downs because your running back is doing what he does, and that's what Nick Chubb did. I just thought he controlled the game. As I mentioned after the game, I just thought in the second half he controlled the game and we didn't. And by we, I mean in all elements of the game. We didn't do enough to minimize him. We didn't do enough on offense to possess the ball and minimize his impact on it. We didn't make enough splash in special teams. And so, we have to wear that. Oftentimes, the team that loses on Thursday night is the team whose defense played the most snaps, and ours did. And he had a lot to do with it. I don't want to take anything away from him in what it is that they do. We talked about it going into the game, what a critical component neutralizing their run game is on a lot of fronts. Just succinctly, we weren't able to get it done. And so we have to absorb the responsibility that comes with that, not only on defense, but like I said, in all three phases. We didn't do enough. We didn't make enough significant plays. We didn't put our guys in enough positions to make those plays. And so for those reasons, we were unsuccessful. We had a long weekend. We had an opportunity to kind of analyze some of those things, to not only look at what transpired in the stadium on Thursday, but just look at where we are as a collective in all three phases to this point, a mini bye, if you will. And then as we lean in on this next opportunity, let's talk about this next opportunity for a little bit, the New York Jets. We're excited about getting back home and playing again. We know they got some quarterback questions. Flacco's played for them thus far in the regular season. We're very familiar with Joe. Joe's very familiar with us. He still has a very big arm. He's good in big moments. He makes great decisions. He's unflappable. He always has been, and that appears to remain to be the same. I'd imagine the Jets are excited about having a guy with his experience and resume under the circumstances being a signal caller for him. From a Zach Wilson perspective, we haven't been in the stadium with him, and so there are some unknowns. His mobility is dramatically different than Joe's and presents some different challenges from that perspective. There'll be a get-to-know, if you will. But obviously, mobility and some other things as it pertains to him is a mystery for them as well because he hadn't played. And so we're getting ready with all of those things being understood. What is a consistent, and regardless of who's at quarterback, is the running back tandem that they have in Carter and Hall. Carter, a second-year guy out of North Carolina, Hall, a rookie out of Iowa State. Man, they've been highly, highly productive. They utilize both guys in the running game, in the passing game, increasingly significant components of what it is they do. Hall, particularly in the passing game, possession down ball here in recent weeks. Wilson outside at receivers, another young guy whose role is emerging with each passing week. You see the confidence that Joe has in him in situational ball, be it possession downs or red zone. I like their tight end tandem, Conklin and CJ. They picked up CJ from Cincinnati, Conklin from Minnesota in free agency. Both guys have a versatile skill set. You get a bunch of multiple tight end offensive personnel groups. It aids in their running game. It aids in their play action passing and misdirection passing game. They're very multiple. They can spread you out. They can play closed quarter football. They do some things that really kind of keep you off balance in terms of their varied personalities from an offensive perspective, and that has our attention early in the week as we get ready to prepare for those guys. On the defensive side of the ball, man, they're really solid up front, particularly inside up front. Williams and Rankin are both former first-rounders, are power players who happen to be athletic. They control what happens inside. Playing behind them is C.J. Mosley, their green dot all situations linebacker. Obviously, we're familiar with C.J. from his time in Baltimore. He's still a very good player and still very much an all situations linebacker. I don't know that there's a defensive personnel package that he's not involved in. I like their edge guys. Carl Lawson we're familiar with, former Cincinnati Bengal, but they also have Johnson, the first rounder out of Florida State, who we evaluated in the draft. And he is another young guy that appears to have an emerging role with each passing week. One young guy whose role is not emerging, has been really consistent from day zero, is Sauce at corner. We looked at him in the draft. We were at Cincinnati's Pro Day. He's long, he's talented, he's confident, he's got ball skills, he's got a feel for the game. Like some of the things that he's shown thus far. In the safety tandem, Whitehead and Joyner, both really good tacklers, both really good feel guys in terms of having an innate feel for the game, being able to play downhill into the run, and also good versus the play pass. They got a good defense on all levels, but like I mentioned when I opened up, particularly that interior part of Williams and Rankin with C.J. Mosley, wreak a lot of havoc on the interior portions of the field. We got to be good as we work to neutralize those guys. From a health standpoint, Witherspoon's got a hamstring that could very well limit him. We'll see where this week leads us. Minka is in the concussion protocol, got evaluated post-game, and he's in the protocol. I'll give you guys an update as he continues to move within the protocol. Kevin Dotson has an ankle injury that may limit him somewhat at the early portions of the week. And then post-game, Presley Harvin expressed discomfort in the hip area, inflammation and so forth. And so we're monitoring that on a day-to-day basis as well. As always, man, we'll put together a plan highlighting the players available to us, their collective strengths, working to minimize our weaknesses, all in an effort to get the business handled this week, and our business is winning. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, you said that you had a chance to use the long weekend, like as a mini bye. Where do you assess your offense? What did you see when you looked at it?
There are a lot of things that we need to do better. There are a lot of things that we'd like to do better. I think the best way to sum up my evaluation of it, whether it's the collective unit or components of the unit, is that we've been better with every outing. And so it's reasonable to expect those improvements to continue. We haven't done enough to win the last two football games, and so there's reason for alarm as it pertains to that. But largely I'm seeing improvements in all areas, whether it's individuals or whether it's the collective. And so it's our job to tune out the noise and to remain committed to the path that we're on and work to get better in the effort to change the outcome of these games. I expect our guys not to blink and to continue to work. And so I have to display that as a leader, and I intend to.
Talking with some of the players yesterday, Chase Claypool said that he doesn't feel frustrated. It's too early to feel frustrated. But what's the general gauge of the temperature within the offensive room?
I don't know about the offensive room in particular. I don't know that if I diagnosed it that way. I know that we're all pretty hacked off that we hadn't won the last two games, and we realize that football is our game and our business is winning, and so we got to get back to business.
Mike, you have Montravius Adams now listed as first team nose tackle. What went into that change, and what have you seen from him?
He's been playing better than Tyson, and so we just thought that was appropriate.
You mentioned that you're encouraged in the way that the progression is happening. What specifically with Mitch Trubisky do you like in the way that he's progressing?
In all areas, in decision-making and where he's going with the ball, the time in which he's making decisions, the prudent use of mobility, whether it's by schematics or by ad-lib, but just generally all areas.
Like T.J. Watt can affect the game in so many different ways. Just where are you feeling his absence most through the first 2 weeks here without him?
I hadn't focused on, feeling his absence. I really focused my energies on the utilization of guys that are available to us and the best ways to highlight their talent. Sometimes you can spend a lot of time or waste a lot of time worrying about people that aren't at your disposal. So I think that's my mindset and our mindset as we're here today, is to how to utilize the makeup of the guys that are available to us right now in an effort to play better. And so although, TJ's absence is a component of what's going on with us, I just think that's the proper approach in terms of how to look at it, and that's where our energies are.
Would you like to go up-tempo on offense a little bit more, or are the concerns about time of possession and your defense getting out there too quickly part of the equation?
Pace is a component of what we do each and every week. It's not whether or not we use pace, it's how we use it, in what situations, in what manner. And so that's just going to be a function of what it is that we do each and every week. It's a function of our offense.
I realize the Jets have some questions at quarterback, but if Zach Wilson does get a go, he has just 13 NFL starts. When you're playing a guy with that relative inexperience, how does that shape things from a defensive standpoint?
I don't know if that in particular shapes things. The fact that we're unfamiliar with him, having not been in the stadium with him, is probably more significant from our perspective in terms of, weighing his talents and how it might play out into our planning. In-stadium arm strength, in-stadium mobility, how he sees the field, et cetera. There are probably more questions than answers, but that's probably the same could be said on both sides.
Is Montrevious a different style nose tackle than Tyson? How does that his style fit into your defense?
You could say that, but not significantly, no. He's capable of doing the things that we ask him to do. He's played a lot of football for us. He played a lot and started a lot for us last year. He missed a lot of time during team development, and that probably slowed his progress. Since he's been back from injury, we've just seen a really uptick in his consistency and performance.
Mike, how much of you guys' successes and failures on third downs on offense have been more about matchups and preparation for your opponent versus you guys doing what you're supposed to do?
A lot of it is a lot of reasons why, environmentally is a component of it as well. 2 out of our 3 games have been in hostile division road game environments, and that affects, possession downs and particularly on offense. And so, we understand all of those things.
Mike, I believe when you said you were talking about the offense and the improvements, you said we'll continue to tune out the noise. What's the noise?
Questions from you guys, which I anticipated. And that's why I want to display the resolve that I want our team to display.
Is some of that noise too? I mean, what are the challenges in coming back to a home stadium where, yes, it's friendly, but when they are upset about something, when fans want to change, they're very vocal about it. Is that some of the noise you have to shut out?
Our fans are not an issue, man. We love our fans and the enthusiasm that they bring. We're not going to make that a negative. They care, and that's an awesome thing.
Coach, your thoughts on Jets rookie Sauce Gardner, what he brings to their defense?
Like I mentioned earlier, he's really talented. He's got a feel for the game. He's long. He can run. He's instinctual. He plays with great confidence. He displayed those things as a young guy when he played as a true freshman at Cincinnati, and I don't think that those characteristics have changed, although he's a rookie in the National Football League. He's just a really talented guy, but that's why you take those guys as high in the draft as they took him.
Some of that extra time you mentioned during the mini-bye, self-evaluation you might be doing. Offensively, have you found that you're using all areas of the field enough in terms of both play calling and execution once the ball is snapped?
I like to think that we are from an intention standpoint, but it doesn't always play out that way for a myriad of reasons.
Anyone else? Mike, you mentioned getting better every week. Does that mean there won't be any changes, or are there changes you're considering?
Certainly, we're going to do what's required to handle this week's business, which is to win. And so I'm open to whatever that entails. But at the same time, we're not going to blow in the wind. And I think that's the sentiment that I want to relay to you guys, is that, the last couple of games hadn't unfolded the way that we would like, but we're in a no-blink business, particularly if we believe in what it is that we do and the people that we're doing it with. Sometimes you just got to show steely resolve and smile in the face of adversity that the last couple of games results have produced for us, and roll our sleeves up and get back to work and wait for our next opportunity.
You mentioned Showing Steeler resolve and smiling in the face of adversity. We've heard some of the young players, the rookies, talk about that this week. How do you see them kind of going through this learning process, when you're learning and losing at the same time?
I'm not concerned about them. I think it's important that I and we show them, as opposed to me worrying about how they absorb things. They watch us. They watch their leaders. They watch veteran players. They watch the coaches. They get their marching orders from that. And so it's less about what we say and more about how we conduct ourselves. And that's kind of been my experience as it pertains to some of those things.
Mike, relative to your run defense, is your play from the front group below the line?
Sometimes you just got to give Cleveland credit. You got to give Nick Chubb credit. I'm not ready to assess it in that way. Do we need to play better? Certainly. But I'm not ready to assess it in that way. Sometimes I just tend to give credit to the professionals that we compete against because that's appropriate as well.
It looked like the offense performed well whenever you guys were running the football effectively. How is that the most critical part that you guys need to be able to execute on offense in order to make it a well?
There's so many critical parts, and certainly that's one of them. But game circumstances and things of that nature oftentimes are determining factors in terms of which component is most significant. But that's why you got to have a lot of irons in the fire. You got to be working to get better in all areas. You got to have an agenda in all areas.
Looking specifically at the run game, I know Jalen Warren fumbled, but just how much can his emergence help as a change of pace back, mixing it in there with Najee?
I think you saw some of that on Thursday night. It's continuing to shape itself and improve, and I like the general trajectory of it.
How encouraged are you by the run game and how it's evolved from week one until this point?
I'm continually encouraged. I think we've talked, whether it's components of it, whether it's individuals like Jalen Warren carving out a role for himself, or whether it's about groups within the group, like the emergence of the offensive line has been continually better with each and every performance. I just think in all areas are pointing to improvement, and that's why we got to keep our head down and keep working and ultimately get results in stadium.
Mike, if he's unable to go, how do you make up for the loss of all the things that Emeka can do for you on defense?
I'm not ready to suggest that at this point. I'm just acknowledging that he's in the protocol.
With Presley Harvin dealing with the hip inflammation, do you guys need to bring in someone else as kind of an emergency situation?
That is a potential, but we'll see what today holds, certainly.
Mike, Alex Highsmith leads the NFL in sacks right now. What's he done that's made himself a better asset to you guys on defense, and how have you noticed a difference in his day-to-day operations from how you see him?
It's just a natural maturation process of a solid young player. He showed signs as a rookie and carved out a role for himself and participated. He ascended in year 2 when Bud left in free agency. And now he's in year 3. He's been a lap around the track as a starter. I think it's reasonable for him to take that experience and that knowledge and continue to grow. I know his day-to-day work habits kind of display that, and so I don't think any of us are surprised by what we're seeing from him in stadium. And I really think that's just the attitude that all of us have largely. We keep our head down, we keep working, and we understand there's a such thing as football justice on the other end of it. You get better.
Having watched that play where Chooks jumped on the injured player, people in Cleveland seem to be upset by that. Did you see anything wrong with what transpired on that?
I didn't see the component of the play that you mentioned that upset people, no.
Mike, can you have an illegal man downfield on a shovel pass?
Evidently, yes. Evidently.
Anyone else? All right.
Thank you. Thank you.